Hello everyone, as a fan of BioWare and Dragon Age in particular, I consume any content related to Dragon Age 4 I can get my hands on, to get my fix. And as first seeker of the Order of the Warriors of Justice, when the video titled Dragon Age 4 Why Social Justice Warrior Pandering Has No Place in This Game by Danville appeared on my feed, I was intrigued. I would advise you to watch this video first, so let's see what our friend Danville has to say, shall we?
Guys, Potates here. Dragon Age 4 is being worked on and I recently released a video on the top 5 things I'd like to see in this next installment. Most people agreed with me, over 95% of comments, which is many more than expected actually. However, there were people who pushed back, some rather aggressively, at my point that I wanted less social justice warrior pandering. I thought I should make it very clear what I mean, as I could have explained my point better, and I want to take you through some pretty clear examples throughout the titles. So let me begin by saying that social justice warrior does not mean LGBT. Once again, you can be part of the LGBT community and not be a social justice warrior. It's a label now used to describe someone who aggressively strives to silence the expression of opinion or art of someone they disagree with to further their own agenda.
Ah yes, you mean like making a video telling a studio that social justice warrior pandering has no... Wait.
So how has social justice warrior pandering affected BioWare?
And finally the video starts.
Well, let's look at Mass Effect and Dragon Age. Both franchises were dark, edgy, and didn't hold back on the grit.
You there, elf. Where's my armor? And why are you dressed so preposterously?
Wow, I've never seen one of you knife-ears dressed like the King of Ferelden before.
There were things you would expect in those universes: racism, segregation, violence, horrendous acts, and more. It touched on all parts of humanity, no matter how raw or embarrassing.
What? How? Did you play as a filthy Shemlin? That's the only way you could have avoided all the blatant racism in the game. I mean, from the very start, everyone expects, heck, assumes the Herald of Andraste to be human. Even Cassandra takes a while to come to terms with the Qunari being the chosen one.
We say this is a false prophet, a wicked Qunari sent to subvert the Maker's word.
I fought your kind years ago, Qunari. You don't belong here.
I have to admit, I thought you'd be...
Human?
Yes.
Or Josephine trying to hide the fact that people haven't taken the idea of a Dalish Inquisitor very well. You see, in Dragon Age Inquisition, as the Herald, you are faced with a less overt but just as harmful form of racism. No random NPCs in their right mind will be overtly racist because you own an army and are being advised by some of the most powerful people in Thedas, and you may or may not be Jesus Christ. It would be some questionable writing if everyone started treating you like an elven slave.
It seemed like all these characters were suddenly holding hands and dancing under a rainbow. Qunari are suddenly nice and inclusive, everyone is accepting of everyone, the world is full of compassion and love.
Full of love? Okay, in your next playthrough there is this elf by the name of Solus. Try talking to him, especially as a Dalish. Also, the idea that there is a lack of racism because of SJWs doesn't make any sense. Did some Dalish elves and Qunari march into BioWare demanding them to get rid of racism?
As a brown man, I've more than had my share of racism directed at me. It's not easy, it's been happening my whole life.
Yeah, well, at least you're not a baby killing Halawai the knife ear.
However, it makes no sense removing it from the law, just like it makes no sense making it illegal for people to call me what they want to call me.
Anyway, he then pulls out a screenshot of an article. Well, the most important part of an article, the headline, which says, "Not using transgender pronouns could get you fined." What? Fining me for not using transgender pronouns? That's ridiculous! Oh my god, I'm gonna tell everyone how SJWs are ruining the country. But first, let's read the article to make sure. This article is from the New York Post, whose first sentence, which appears just under Danville's cropped screenshot, says, "Employers and landlords who intentionally and consistently ignore using pronouns such as ze or he to refer to transgender workers and tenants who request them may be subject to fines as high as $250,000. This is from the New York's Commission on Human Rights, who are trying to address the problem of gender-based discrimination. And I quote, "The updated regulations are meant to address the situations in which individuals intentionally and repeatedly target transgender and gender non-conforming people with this type of harassment." And if you read the actual legal guidance, it clearly states that asking someone their preferred gender pronoun and preferred name is not a violation of the NYCHRL. Here's a list of things that are a violation of the NYCHRL. Let me give you an example. If Krem wants to rent a house in Denham for all his capital, and a shitty landlord keeps referring to him as Miss, and constantly ignores Krem's attempts to inform him that he is a man, or if the landlord tells him to change his name or to prove that he is in fact a man before agreeing to do business, that is transphobia and should be actively discouraged. Krem should be able to rent a house without being interrogated or attacked because of his gender, goddammit. What I am trying to say is that getting outraged at the headline of an online article is absolutely ridiculous. Let's move on.
Look at the Fallout series. You can be a slaver. There are racists, cannibals, people abusing children, mass murderers. Bethesda didn't care at all what the Warriors will say. We can't just sweep our nature under the rug and pretend like it's not there.
Well, seeing how you just ignored all the hideous things Inquisition deals with, apparently you can't pretend it's not there.
The major reason for this is, you guessed it, pandering to the social justice warriors. BioWare and EA are under the microscope, and if they take one step too far, it'll be an excuse for the Warriors to come down hard on them.
Well, EA is the devil, and the reason that they are under the microscope has nothing to do with SJW now, does it? They just have really terrible business practices that screw over consumers, like shoehorning a stupid multiplayer mode into a Dragon Age game because microtransactions.
The game was racist, the game was intolerant, the game overly sexualizes women. You hear all these things coming out even now, and I don't blame BioWare for taking a step back and saying, F it, let's play it safe.
Ooh, is this the SJW trying to censor BioWare? Let's take a look. This is an article from Kotaku by a Tracy John, which by the way was written in 2010, about Mass Effect 2. BioWare sure took its sweet time to start playing it safe. In the article, Tracy John asked the project lead, Casey Hudson, about John and Miranda's character design. You know, why is Miranda wearing a super tight skimpy outfit, and why is Jack, well, shirtless? And in particular this scene where the camera keeps holding and Miranda's behind, something I trust everyone noticed when they first played the game. And these are valid questions because what you need to understand is that the camera is controlled much like in movies by cinematographers, and shots are framed the way they are for a reason. If a shot is framed by a straight man who has particular tastes for an audience who is presumed to be male and straight, then that perspective is forced on the viewers, or in this case the players, some of who don't share those tastes, and it can be jarring and off-putting. This is why you see straight women and some LGBT people criticize a piece of media that you personally don't see the problem with. Casey Hudson, the project lead, explains that Miranda was created by her father to look beautiful because she is a femme fatale who uses her beauty to her advantage. And Tracy counters that through the course of her playthrough, Miranda never uses her beautiful appearance to give herself an advantage, like Casey said. Which is a decent argument because using beauty to seduce and put people in dangerous situations is what femme fatales do. Which leaves us with two options. Either Miranda was designed for titillation and Casey is lying, or Miranda is a failure of a character because she's a femme fatale who doesn't act like the femme fatale she was designed to be. Tracy then goes on to say that she likes the idea of Miranda having issues with how beautiful she was designed to look and how it was being used, but that's not the game we got. And she ends the article by saying, while many gamers who play Mass Effect 2 are males, it's instances like this that remind me that the game was not made with female gamers in mind, even though many women play it. You see, Tracy's main argument isn't that Mass Effect 2's character design are overly sexualized. She's saying that Miranda's design doesn't mesh with her character, and the game, heck, the camera itself, sexualizes her. But hey, this is just my conclusion from, reading the article. Let's put a different point of view from a comment on the article by 2010 Lip Nasty. This article comes off pretty whiny. The author puts someone on the spot and they don't seem like they'll rest until they admit to being chauvinist pigs. The female form is beautiful, more so than the male form. I imagine the vast majority of people, hetero women included, would agree to that. Yeah bro, that's like a totally unbiased scientific fact. BioWare designed Miranda to have a nice butt. Why not have some shots of said butt? It's like they would design a really cool building in the Citadel and then showed it on the flyover landing cutscene. Don't you think the cinematographer sets up ass shots for J-Lo in her movies? Yes, Lip Nasty, we know. That's the problem. I don't believe someone needs an excuse or to be made to feel guilty for making a butt like that, then showing it off for a few shots. I definitely wouldn't feel guilty for enjoying it. It could be argued the game wasn't made with women in mind when they designed the gameplay to be all about shooting things with guns. Yeah, as a man I was born with manly gun genes, which women lack. That's why I, as a man, love playing shooters, and women never ever use guns. Anyway, this article fails to prove that SJWs are censoring BioWare, so let's move on.
Once again, I can't speak for the LGBT community and can only speak in my personal opinion as a straight male, but it was painfully obvious in both games that the females were made to satisfy the objections of the social justice warriors in terms of over-sexualization. Josephine was never around, so I don't want to spend too much time on her, but I found her to be a pompy politician that wasn't particularly interesting. So she was off the table if I didn't want to play politics while the world was ending.
Hey, don't you mess with Josie, she's an incredibly well-rounded character. And what do you mean by off the table?
Cassandra, on the other hand,
What's wrong with Cassandra, Allegra, Portia, Caloreda, Philomena, Pentagast?
was incredibly easy to work out, boring, and had absolutely nothing to her character besides being religious and secretly into romance novels.
Wait, let me get this straight. You don't like Cassandra as you find her boring because she has no personality besides being religious and into romance novels. What part of those character traits have anything to do with her being sexualized? Does being religious or into romance novels inherently make a character less interesting? Personally, I liked Cassandra quite a lot actually. Let me explain. Cass was born in a carriage, the 78th in line to the Nevarran throne, whose parents were executed for attempting to overthrow the king. Her brother and her then went to live with her uncle at the Grand Necropolis, where they both trained as they both wanted to become dragon hunters. She then witnessed her brother being murdered in front of her, and all of this happened before she became a teenager, which makes it incredible that after all this tragedy, she is still an Andrastian that believes in the Maker. And unlike most religious folk, she isn't blind to the shortcomings of the Chantry and believes that reform is necessary. And depending on your relationship with religion, you might not see this as a big deal, but having a devout follower of Andraste, literally the right hand of the Pope, looking at the Chantry and going, things need to change, is actually a really big deal. Also, you seem to misunderstand the critique of female character design. If Cass appeared looking like this, the player is in their right to ask why, because there is no reason for the Seeker and the right hand of the Pope at that to look like this. It's not that hard. Let's continue.
One comment on my last video compared her to Alistair, hoping to derail my point. Frankly, it did the opposite. First, that's a comparison between a straight male and a straight woman. You can see the problem.
What? Alistair isn't straight. You do realize the game was released in a bug state until somebody fixed it to the mod, right?
If the character's whole personality is that she's a strong woman, it's frankly not enough.
This is quite incredible. You think Cassandra's only personality trait is the fact that she is a strong woman. This feels more like you ignored her character traits because she wasn't someone you were personally interested in. And that's fine. It's okay not to like a character, but to say that every character you dislike were created because of social justice warrior pandering is some next level conspiratory nonsense.
Take Morrigan from Dragon Age Origins. Here was a powerful woman done right. So let's take a look at how they represented her in Inquisition. Notice some things changed?
Yeah, I know, 2009 graphics were shit.
This is indisputable proof that BioWare was scared of over-sexualization. Maybe she had a magical breast reduction, who knows. What is clear though is this is social justice warrior pandering. There is no other reason to do this.
You mean other than trying to update an old character's model and design to work well with the switch from the Eclipse engine to the Frostbite 3 engine, right? And you are going to explain how Morrigan is a better character overall, and you bring up her breasts. Classy.
This is indisputable proof that BioWare was scared of over-sexualization.
wait, this is indisputable proof that SJWs ruined Dragon Age Inquisition. The fact that they remodeled Morrigan. What? Oh my god, yes, Morrigan is back, it's been so long! Wait. This is Social Justice Warriors! But again, you missed the point. Morrigan's character design in Origins was fine because of who she was. If anything, I wish Morrigan in Inquisition kept the outfit she met her in. People change. She is now an advisor to the Empress of Orlais, and depending on your choices in Origins, also a mother who cares deeply for her son, who by the way looks nothing like my warden Morrigan. There is no reason for her to look like a witch of the wild.
Now, this is not something I really care that much about. It's a game after all, and frankly, if I want breasts, I can easily look at my girlfriends or jump online.
Cool.
After a long day at school or at work, people want to come home and be taken away to somewhere else magical. So yes, in a way looks matter because in this fantasy we want to be better than our real selves. The hero is and gets the best girl or guy possible. This is not real life, so there's a license to not be realistic.
Oh yeah, that actually makes perfect sense. Wait, am I the one who said...
Look at the Fallout series. You can be a slaver. There are racists, cannibals, people abusing children, mass murderers. We can't just sweep our nature under the rug and pretend like it's not there.
Oh, you seem to be sending conflicting messages, man. Do you want a fantasy game where the creators can do what they want, including toning down racism or breasts? Or do you want games to be filled with child abusers and cannibals because it more accurately portrays real life?
For example, make a male companion handsome, muscly, intelligent, and charming that's, I don't know, a doctor that's cast aside his oath. Mix that up.
Ooh, another article. So anytime somebody pulls up an article in a video, I get really excited. I have no idea why. This article was published by the sun.co.uk, the online version of the popular British newspaper, which says that gamers are accusing BioWare of making female characters in Andromeda ugly because they appear less attractive than the model they're based on. The author of the article then points to their source, stating that the BioWare fan site BioFan says that Jade Rossi, the female model, looks different from Sarah Ryder. So let's take a look at that link. Ooh, Tumblr, that's always a good sign. And the link goes to the image directly and not the post itself. Very strange. So let's take a look at the post then. My friend, there is absolutely nothing here. BioFan is just a site that reports on news related to BioWare games, like the review of the actors playing the main characters. But let's give the author of this article the benefit of the doubt. Maybe BioFan here edited his post to remove his opinions. But it is worth mentioning that BioFan has a YouTube channel where they make videos of their post, and in this video he never once mentioned the models being uglier. I mean, the game wasn't even out yet. Now, if you're like me, you're probably asking, where are these gamers accusing BioWare of making the female characters ugly, and is there any truth or merit to their claim? Well, to back up their claims, the article then posts a series of screenshots of the actors' Instagrams. What? Steven Bruin lends his face to the male version of the Ryder character. Yes, you already told us this. Steven Bruin is a dead ringer for his Mass Effect Andromeda character Scott Ryder. Hey, remember when you showed us some evidence to back up your claims? Yeah, me neither. Gamers are complaining that BioWare has made Sarah Ryder more ugly than the model who inspired her. Again, who are these gamers and where are your sources? Are you just quoting yourself? Jade Rossi posts this in an Instagram snap. Okay, you're starting to worry me. There's been a mixed reaction to the portrayal of Sarah Ryder. And this one doesn't even have a quote, it's just the model's portrait. What? The article then goes on to talk about a game critic that accuses BioWare of othering women. Okay, this is it. Have we found the backbone of your article? Well, let's see what this completely reputable, not at all biased website has to say about it. It links to a page that no longer exists. Is this real life? Tow the Wayback Machine. Heat Street. It's fucking Heat Street. Oh my god, I need a moment. For those of you who don't know, Heat Street was a conservative news outlet of poor reputation that was founded to pander to the Gamergate crowd and insensately complained about SJWs ruining video games, and was infamous for never doing any research or providing any sources, with clickbaity headlines such as "Outrage after Mass Effect character revealed not to be gay," "People are actually mad that Wonder Woman Gal Gadot has no armpit hair," "Disgusting, Mario Kart culturally appropriating in Super Mario Odyssey." According to the Outline.com, the staff was deranged, fact-checking was non-existent, and the content mostly consisted of embedded tweets and, on good days, rewarded news articles. While Heat Street may have served little to no informational purpose as a website, it tells a fascinating story of upheaval in the right-wing media. Towards the end cycle of Heat Street, it was run by Ian Miles Chung. Yes, the guy that went from criticizing Gamergate to praising and defending it. It was basically Breitbart for millennial gamers. So excuse me if I take everything this website says with a tank of salt. But did BioWare make its female characters ugly on purpose? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Mass Effect Andromeda had a very troubled development and was released in a very bad state, with some terrible facial animation issues that was either due to the switch from the Unreal Engine to Frostbite, or a really tight schedule that made them release an unrefined product because the time was up. And again, websites like the defunct Hit Street will take anything and spin a story that ends up blaming not a specific person, but this nebulous idea of the SJWs to pander to the Gamergate crowd. And Danville here is just parroting this to his audience, who will in turn share it to their friends in this cycle of manufactured outrage. For a good take on this topic, I suggest you watch Sean's fantastic video, Cuphead the Fake Outrage, whose video also has an appearance by Ian Miles Chung.
It's not just about the relationships you can have in the game, it's about the quality of everything being lowered to pander to a very small demographic of people, which ultimately serves to lower the quality of the game for me and many others.
And here's where your argument falls flat. You are trying to argue that BioWare and EA, a publicly traded company whose express purpose under capitalism is not just to make money but to grow, chooses to pander to a small demographic of SJWs and risk losing profits by alienating you and these many others that you keep mentioning. That is some next level genius right there.
Regardless of if you enjoyed the characters in both games or not, it's hard to dispute that both games were not as powerful story-wise as the ones that came before them. This is not up for debate.
Story-wise, I thought we were talking about individual characters you dislike. The SJWs also got BioWare to make a less compelling story. So, wait, let me get this straight. Social Justice Warriors told BioWare that the Archdemon and Logain was overtly sexualized and should be replaced with a less interesting villain, that the RPG element of the first game was using the incorrect gender pronoun and should be replaced with a watered-down version, that having blood magic was being too insensitive to other forms of magic and should be replaced with the boring necromancer. And I assume that the SJWs also told them that putting the best storyline in the final DLC instead of the main game was a great idea. It wasn't because despite the game having lots of great moments, it also had the weight and notoriety of Origins looming over it like a dark cloud, making it difficult to balance giving the players what they enjoyed from Origins while giving them something new, as well as working around the restrictions that comes from all the choices the player has made to fade us throughout the other games. No, it was the SJWs. Listen, you can have legitimate criticism of Dragon Age Inquisition. I wasn't particularly fond of the character designs, especially on the villains and legions. I would have loved to play as someone without the power of the Inquisitor. Origin's story had far more weight because you were powerless and you had to go about begging powerful people to lend you a hand. It would have also been nice if they had expanded on the idea of playing your origin story in an RPG, something that was loved by so many in Origins, instead of deleting it from the franchise. You get the point. But blaming everything you dislike about a game on some nebulous SJW is some scaremongering nonsense. And when you say Social Justice Warrior does not mean LGBT, you are either being facetious or you really don't understand why LGBT people had a problem with your video. The term Social Justice Warrior doesn't mean anything anymore. Some people might argue that it never really meant anything, and is now used as a slur to attack certain groups of people who criticize a piece of media. And the ones who tend to be the most critical of video games, for example, are the ones who the industry constantly ignores or pretends are not there, namely women and LGBT people. Heck, in the video you released just before this one, you did this yourself. You say Dragon Age needs less SJW pandering, and immediately start talking about straight and LGBT romance options.
Less social justice warrior pandering. What do I mean? Well, it seems like further down the timeline we go in BioWare games, the less straight male and straight female options we have.
You see, Danville's problem is that he feels that as a straight male, he did not get any good romance options in Inquisition. In Origins, there was Morrigan and Liliana, and in Dragon Age 2, there was Isabella. But in Inquisition, he has Josie, who he dislikes for no good reason, and Cassandra, Allegra, Portia, Caloreda, Philomena, Pentagast, who, as someone who believes in SJWs, a small group of people who use their blogging powers to censor mega corporations, is his worst nightmare, because she has short hair and is a really strong warrior who doesn't throw herself at you like the ladies in the previous games. And if you are a straight female or LGBT, you probably just rolled your eyes hard just now, because most games we play have a straight male protagonist with strictly female romance options, and we play them anyways, or in the case of BioWare games, have to rely on a mod to fix it. And Danville's complaint isn't that there are no straight romance options, but that he doesn't like the ones that are there. And in both videos, he keeps counting the amount of options for straight men and women versus those for LGBT. And his second problem appears: the fact that he, as a straight male, doesn't have the most options. Danville, this is a very harmful way of looking at video games. There is a reason why the examples you brought up of SJWs censoring BioWare were women. There is also a reason why the characters you scrutinized in BioWare games were also women. Cassandra, Josephine, Sarah, Cora, Morrigan. The problem with this attitude and why I decided to make this video in the first place is that it takes real grievances that players actually have and places it on imaginary enemies, making it very difficult to give BioWare honest feedback and criticism, if you're a minority, that is. You and your video are just feeding into this message that gaming is sending to minorities. That is the fact that you are cool as long as you don't bring up your gender or sexuality. You don't get to criticize, because if you do, it's censorship. But I suspect that you already know this. And I will always speak up against it, because if we don't, if we keep quiet, video games will never evolve, will never grow, and that would suck. I am looking forward to DA4, and I do hope that BioWare has the fortitude to resist the meddlings and desires of EA. Something that you should be worried about, because as I stated earlier, EA is the devil. Thanks for watching.